The GOAT is through the third round here at the US Open after a tricky match against Zachary Svajda, the young American who went through qualifying to play here in the US Open all the way to the second round. And tricky is the way to put it. Obviously, I was very surprised that Novak would play at 11:30 a.m. on a Wednesday during the US Open. You think a player like him, he's always going to play in night sessions, and he can obviously request night sessions. He's the type of player that has the leeway to request whichever time you want. Federer did that a lot later on in his career where he was like, look, Australia, I only want to play at night because the heat goes crazy. But he decided to play at 11:30. I don't know if he requested that or if it was just scheduled and he didn't object to it. But regardless, it was a beautiful day in New York. I think it was only a high of 80. You know, sometimes during New York, we get sweltering heat conditions and it's very hot. Last year it was very hot at times, 90 plus several days where players really started to feel it. Not as much on Ash because of the way it's built, but especially on Armstrong and Grandstand and any of the outer courts. But today was a very beautiful day in New York. The issue is the sun was still there and you feel the shadow over Ash. And the shadow over Ash really causes a problem for many players. It becomes more difficult just to see the ball. And when you can't see the ball, you become a little bit more cautious. Maybe you don't swing as much into your forehand as you normally would because you're worried that maybe this ball will go out because I can't fully see it. There's a shadow here and the sun's over there. The sun's my side and there's a shadow over there. So it's kind of distorted between what you can see fully and what you can't. It's even a difficult viewing experience just here watching it on TV on a screen where you're like, this looks a bit rough. So that clearly plagued him. And, you know, he wore a hat, Djokovic did, for his side when he was serving in the sunny side during the first set and like halfway through the second set. And I think his main issue and the reason why he dropped the first set 7-6 was because of the sun. The sun was definitely in his eyes. Many a times during the match, he did like this to try to cover his eyes because the sun was getting to him a bit much. I heard on the broadcast that sometimes Novak wears contacts as well, and I wear contacts too. So like it beams into your eyes and you can really feel it and becomes especially bad. So I think with the new renovation to Ash that's going to happen, I think the day after the US Open ends, they'll probably fix that and find a way to, you know, be like, okay, let's maybe hang the roof in a way where it doesn't affect the sun as much. The sun doesn't come in and pierce the players as much on the court. But in the first set, Novak did look sloppy. I think he had 15 unforced errors in the first set alone. Not playing his best tennis by any means. Not serving particularly well. He had a first serve percentage under 50% in the first set. You know, several double faults. He finished with 4 double faults for the match, but his first serve percentage wasn't great. Less than, like I said, it was around 46% or so in the first set. He ended up getting it up to 59% for the match, so he served significantly better in the last 3 sets. But Zachary Svajda, major kudos to him. I did not know that he could play something like this. When you hear a name like Zachary Svajda going up against Novak Djokovic, the GOAT who has won 4 US Opens, you think to yourself, this is going to be easy. This is going to be light work. It's going to be nothing. You can never underestimate an opponent at the US Open, at any slam really, because not only do they train and work themselves so much to be here, going through qualifying actually strongly helps them at times because they've gotten warm. They have 4 matches under their belt. You have 1. But the one thing that Novak has is you've played against crowds like Ash many a times. I can't remember the last time Djokovic has played on an outer court at the US Open. Obviously at any slam. I think he played at Suzanne Lenglen at Paris this year, but like he rarely ever plays on any outer court now because obviously it's Novak Djokovic. So he doesn't know how to handle the Ash crowd. But the Ash crowd is kind of behind him because he's American. Not fully, not like Coco last night where everybody was behind him because not only is she an American, she's an American that's a slam winner and that could win the slam this year. So it was kind of just a homer thing, but really most people who are here want to see Djokovic play. And boy, did they see it. And they saw Djokovic completely turned. He was mad at himself for losing the tie break. 1 point got away from him where he was mini broken, I think, at 4-6, served to make it 5-6, and then lost the set 5-7 off of just one really good forehand that ended up winning the tiebreak and ended up winning the set for Svajda. And then from then on, it was just cruise control really for Novak. He ended up breaking him 6 times, Zachary Svajda, and just getting full control of this match. You know, like we know Novak is able to do. He just got more technically sound, got more comfortable, hit 10 aces. He started serving bigger, serving better overall, and really using that as a weapon that we know what it is. Win percentage on first serves was 84%. That's why it was so important for him to get first serves in, and it was so disappointing that his first serve percentage was so low. we were wondering if Djokovic was physically impaired at all after what we saw against Leonard Etienne, where he had a blister on his foot. This is not the first time Novak's had a blister on his foot. I think he had a blister on his foot in Paris. I was listening to a podcast not too long ago where they said it's one of the first times I've ever really studied Djokovic's feet, and he has really long toes, like longer toes than you would ever expect. So especially now that he's older and he gets some blisters and stuff like that, maybe that's part of it. It's definitely not good branding for A6, his sneaker sponsor, because if he continues getting blisters and he's sponsored by you guys, maybe I'll veer away. But regardless, Novak got just so much more clutch. He got so much more down, and he knew what he was supposed to do. And yeah, 6-3, 6-3, 6-1 in the last 3 sets. And Zachary Svajda was also dealing with issues himself. Some people were saying, I don't know if it's psychosomatic. I don't know if it's just the stress level. I don't know if external factors made him think that he was hurt physically. Is it actually physical issues? Is it fitness issues? Because he rarely ever plays matches this long. Is it any of that? Or is it just that he was actually injured? It didn't look like he was injured at all because he was still running around the court. He was still hitting big, but it seemed like mentally almost his mind tricked his body into thinking that he was hurt, which can happen sometimes. But regardless, he ended up finishing the match, and I like Svajda a lot. I think maybe he can be a very decent player. You know, I was impressed by the way I saw him play. He's 22. I was impressed by the way I saw him play, and kudos to him for making it through the entire match, even when you are hurt. It wasn't like, you know, brutally injured. Like, remember Djokovic at the Australian Open at the beginning of this year, where he actually tore part of his hamstring. It wasn't like that, but you could clearly see that it was something. But regardless, he made $154,000 just by making it to the second round of the U.S. Open after going through qualifiers, so he gets a little bit of money in his checkbook. That'll definitely help him out. He gets some ranking points. That'll help out to play in some bigger tournaments later and later on. You know, the money is always great, obviously, but the thing that you actually really want, if you're a player who has to come through qualifying, or, you know, is like a wild card entry or like a hundreds entry into a slam, what you really want is the ranking points, because now you can play in bigger and bigger tournaments around the world and make yourself a staple in Grand Slam tennis, consistently playing at them and doing well. And I think he'll be able to do that now because he'll get ranking points, he'll get the money, and also he'll get exposure. And exposure is very important for tennis players, as we know, because some of them can make more money off the court than they do on the court. I mean, I saw Alcaraz's earnings this year, over $40 million. Over half of that is from off the court as opposed to just winning earnings from on the court. So that's very important, and kudos to Svajda. But Djokovic did what he needed to do. He ended up winning the match. He pulled through after maybe not feeling the best. Did you see that he wasn't wearing his all black today? He switched to the blue, which makes sense because, you know, it's sunny and everything. I don't know if Djokovic requests to play at night for the next round and then pulls the black out, because the black looks really cool against Tien. I was super excited to see. I was like, damn, that looks good. That looks good. And usually players wear the same kit throughout an entire slam. They usually don't wear black, obviously, because of the sun, but sometimes it just looks cool, so you're like, I'll throw it on. But regardless, Djokovic gets it done. He wins the match. He looks good. Not perfect, of course, as we saw in the first set, but he looks good, and he looks like it would be a disappointment if he didn't make it until at least the quarters or maybe even the semis of the U.S. Open. I think his quarter contains Taylor Fritz, who is the number 4 player in the world. And last time I checked, Taylor Fritz wasn't doing so well. Yeah, he lost the first set against the South African, Lloyd Harris, so on Armstrong. So who knows? Who knows what happens there? But Taylor Fritz is obviously a very good player, but Djokovic has beaten him every single time that they played, and that's the player he'd have to play in the quarterfinals if Taylor Fritz ended up getting the quarterfinals, and of course Djokovic does, amongst several Americans as well. I think Tommy Paul is also in Djokovic's quarter. And then Tommy Paul plays tomorrow again. But regardless, Djokovic gets it done, and I look forward to watching Alcaraz tonight and Sabalenka tonight as well. And the U.S. Open is in full swing, getting into gear, and we're getting some deciding things happening. You know, we saw Jack Draper unfortunately have to pull out. We saw a few upsets, Madison Keys, you know what I mean? Always things that happen. Daniil Medvedev had his shitstorm that happened against Bonzi, which was a whole different topic, but really starting to take shape, and really starting to see who we think are the favorites are. By the way they're playing now, not by the way they've played in the summer and in the 1000s before the U.S. Opens, by the way they're playing now. And it's very interesting what is happening. I wonder what you guys think, because I'm enjoying it a lot.